Hi guys, I'm back. Um, so, uh, I'm kind of out of practice now. Um, Hi guys, welcome to Meadowsweet Farm Fiber Arts Design Studio. My name's Bonnie, and this is a podcast about all kinds of making. I'm not going to limit it to the traditional knitting or spinning or weaving podcast. I'm a very curious person, so I'm interested in all kinds of different makings. Whether I make it or someone else does, it's still really fascinating to me. So, this is a podcast about anything that you can make with your hands. Um, and it's also about slow living and just kind of getting in touch with yourself and your nature and surroundings and just finding a place for yourself that you can be absorbed in creating something beautiful. So that's what this podcast is all about. It's about finding a space within your heart and within your head to embrace a moment, embrace a process. So I would love for you to sit back and grab a cup of tea or a cup of coffee and just relax and enjoy this podcast. So today is November the 22nd, 2020, and I have several things that I would like to share with you during this podcast. Hopefully I'll keep it 20 minutes, 25 minutes. And if you are new, I hope that you subscribe. And if you are one of my returning viewers, thank you so much. If you like the podcast, I hope that you give me a thumbs up, and I also hope that you subscribe. And also, I really would appreciate if you left me a comment. I really enjoy hearing from all of you. So I started this podcast in January of this year, and I have several episodes from up until October, and then I did a 2020 daily making diary that a lot of folks followed along with me, and it was a great opportunity for me to really learn how to use the camera and how to navigate through the editing and all the things that I learned over that experience. So when I ended on October 31st, my plan was to do a weekly podcast. And I was going to upload that on Tuesday, so it would be a regular episode on Tuesday. And I have footage from when I was filming, but we had a family medical issue that popped up, and I had to devote my time and my attention to that experience. So everybody's fine. Everything is okay. There's no one that's ill or requiring any medical attention at this point. But it was just a little bit of a stressor until we got some test results back and so on and so forth. But everything turned out just fine. So that's why I haven't been on. And we are finishing our semester. Actually, last week was the last day for me to teach my classes. And now that I'm in the process of grading and all those things and just making sure students have all of their assignments turned in. So that's kept me pretty busy as well. But I did want to start my Tuesday to begin to do the recording on Tuesdays with all of you. So, and I want to share with you what I've been making. So this is what I have been making. Let's see, let's count them. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. These ones are wet, that's why they're separate. 6, 7. 7 hats. I purchased a Addy knitting machine, and I've been watching them for quite some time, and I've been watching the tutorials and the videos about them, and I thought, well, I think I'm going to give this a try. Now, you have to understand, I have several flatbed knitting machines with ribbers, and I really enjoy using them a lot. And I was, when in the 1990s, 80s, I was a production knitter for many, many years. And I was doing production work for Esprit clothing company through a company called Appellation by Design, which I don't think they're in business anymore. And I also did private production knitting for several designers, and I was doing a lot of design work. So I'm really familiar with using the flatbed, but the ribber is tricky to use, and it's been a while since I've played with it, and I knew that I was going to need some time to familiarize myself with the machine again. So I saw this ad for the Addy, and I watched a lot of the videos, and I thought, you know what, I'm going to give this a try and see if it works. And it does. The only trick, now this is my favorite, and I've done all of these hats with wool. I shouldn't say all. There's one I did with some yarn that I got from Hobby Lobby that was like $4 a skein. But this is just a tube, and then you cinch the top and the bottom of the tube once you make it. This is 140 rows. You cinch the top and the bottom, you stuff the bottom up in there, and you get the double thickness, which I really, really like. And it turned out, I mean, they turn out so great. Now let me show you, this is the first one that I made. And I didn't realize, but you have to on my knitting machines, on my flatbeds, they have tensioning devices already built into the machines. And this one, you have to use your hands to tension the yarn as it runs through the machine. So my stitches are a little uneven, and I think I can block this out. I just didn't have time to really play with it. I wet it and let it dry, but I need to play with it a little bit more. But this is with the Hobby Lobby yarn, and this is really soft. And I really like this. I think this is 100% polyester, which I think would be great for kids, you know, just throw it in the washer and the dryer. So I have this one, and the rest of these are all wool. This is a novelty yarn that I got from Autumn House Farm several years ago, and these are just, you know, one skein. So I just crank the machine until I run out of yarn, and then I make a hat. So there's this one. They're different sizes. This one is this is wool, and I think this is wool and Angora, and this is really, really soft. So one of the things, oh, look at this one. I love this yarn. Isn't that pretty? And these are nice. These are nice and warm, and they're big. They stretch. I love them. Okay, and then this one is all wool, and I like that one as well. Now, I do have to play with the tension a little bit, and the tension varies with the different yarns that you choose. So, and then this one this is yarn from Hobby Lobby, but, and you can see, I don't know what I did there. I think I skipped a couple stitches. But this one has a ton of elastic in it. And this is still pretty damp, but once it dries, I think this is going to be a pretty cool hat. And then this one is the Mule Spun. This was Marhaven's yarn, and this is really damp yet, and this is 100% wool, but I love this. This is merino. I love this. So, I've also been looking at all the other things that you can make with the knitting machine, with the Addy king size. And I think I might get the smaller one and do some socks with those. So that's what I've been doing. I've been having really a ton of fun with that. And just, I really like it a lot. The only thing I have to get used to is the tension. Once I get the tension worked out, everything will smooth itself out pretty good. But I really enjoy using it. I really have a good time. So there's that, and the next thing is I would like to take you on a road trip. And as you know, I love making beeswax candles. I like to do hand dipping. I have the mold for the straight candles or the tapered candles, and I have all kinds of different molds, and I really like them. I have been putting them in my Etsy shop, as well as I belong to a couple Facebook groups, and I have sold a ton of candles. So I purchased, last summer I purchased several bricks of beeswax. And Stephen and I went to a gentleman's farm in Fallen Mills, West Virginia. And he has a ton of beehives. He's got probably, I tried to count in his field, and I think there are 60 plus beehive boxes. He also raises fruit trees, and it is just the most beautiful place. His farm is kind of nestled in a valley, and the mountains in West Virginia are so beautiful. So I'm going to share that trip with you. And the other thing that I did was I made some paper. I made some homemade paper, and I used tissue paper, and I'll share my process with you. And I saved some roses from our friend who moved. They lived across the street from Stephen's grandma's house. And Billy and Patricia both loved growing roses. And we picked several roses. They let us pick them. Several roses from all the different varieties that they had growing in their backyard. And I saved them. And I kept thinking, I don't know what to do with these. So I embedded the rose petals into the paper. And I think what I'm going to do, and I know Patty and Billy don't watch those, I think what I'm going to do is take a photograph of their house, and one of the old photographs that we have, and they moved to Florida, and I will mount the photograph onto the rose paper. So I'll share that process with you. And then the other thing is I made the 1889 brown bread recipe, and I'll share that process with you. So that's what's in store on this podcast, and I hope that everybody is doing well. I know that we're They say we're not going to go back into lockdown with the COVID virus, but they're recommending that everybody just stay put for Thanksgiving. So whatever your plans are, wherever you are, I hope you're safe. I hope that everyone has a wonderful Thanksgiving. For those folks that are not from the United States, I hope that you have an absolutely beautiful week. And I will talk with you soon. Bye for now. Stay tuned for all the videos that are coming. These photographs were taken a few weeks ago, about 2 weeks ago, and the leaves had just fallen from the trees, so everything is just starting to get that kind of barren fall look. And this is the beekeeper's farm in Fallen Mills, West Virginia, and you can see all the beehives that he has. The property is nestled in a valley, and it is just picturesque. It's so beautiful. And this gentleman raises honey from his beehives and also collects the wax. And he has about probably, I think he said over 250 fruit trees on his farm. And he just has an incredible, beautiful, beautiful farm. One of the things that's really unique about his home is that he heats his home with, I think it's called hydronic heating, and he has, I believe, a boiler that he burns constantly all summer long, and it actually heats his swimming pool as well. And this is the building that he uses to heat his home. And I don't understand the mechanics of it, but it's definitely an energy and money saver for him. This is just a little outbuilding on his farm. And it was, like I said, just such a beautiful day. This is, as we were driving through the mountains, this was just a little church that I had to stop and take a picture. And then this is just a little town just right outside of Bluefield. Okay, here I am demonstrating how I made my handmade paper with the rose petals. I boiled the tissue paper, and once it got really soft, our blender is broken, so I wasn't able to blend it. But I just used this almost like mashing potatoes and just kind of mashed the paper up. And as you can see, on the counter I have an embroidery hoop. And I just cut out a piece of screening and I placed that inside the embroidery hoop. And my first attempt was just to lay the screened hoop in the paper pulp and just kind of spread it around. But I don't really think that gives you an even paper. So then you can see I'm scooping it onto the screen. And once you get all the paper pulp onto the screen, you can see the water's still a little warm. It wasn't too bad. Once you get all the pulp onto the screen, you have to set the
hoop onto a pretty absorbent towel. I just used a bath towel and folded it a few times. Once I got everything, all the pulp, enough pulp distributed onto the mesh screen, the next thing I did was I started to add the dried rose petals, and I just randomly placed the petals onto the paper pulp, and just relaxed. And as I was doing this, I was thinking about Patricia and Billy and all the fun times we had together and how much they really loved their roses in their garden. Once I got the petals on the pulp evenly distributed, then I took another towel and I laid a second towel over top of the pulp and just started to squeeze out the water. Just kept pressing down on the pulp until I got some of the water out, but not all. As I'm doing that, I'm also trying to smooth out the pulp with my hands. Once I felt like I'd squeezed out enough of the water, my first attempt at doing this, I thought I should take the screen out of the hoop, but I realized after I did this a few times that you just have to flip the screen and the hoop over. You don't have to take the screen out of the hoop to remove the paper from the screen. But this is my first time. So as you can see, it comes off really pretty easy. Just falls right off. So I just made a couple adjustments, made sure everything was smooth, and then the object here is to continue to try to remove as much water as you can, and also you want to try to flatten out the paper. So they say you can use a rolling pin, and I just used a little jelly jar. And I'm going to get I am. I went to get the jelly jar. And just take your time and just smooth it out and just keep rolling and keep checking. And, this was my first attempt, and the first piece of paper that I made was pretty heavy. But then I decided after I looked at it that you just don't need to add as much of the pulp, and you get a much thinner, smoother paper. So you just have to keep rolling and trying to get the water out and get everything smooth, and just keep checking it. once you get enough water out, you just set this somewhere flat to dry, and you've got handmade paper. So I think I made 3 with the pulp that I have in the big metal pan. I made 3 of these. Okay, this is the recipe that we found from Stephen's grandma's recipe book. And this is a recipe from 1889, and it calls for sour milk. And I looked up sour milk, and they said that it could either be buttermilk, or you could just take some lemon juice and add that to the regular milk. It also calls for sweet milk, which is just regular whole milk, and then it calls for meal, which is cornmeal. So, and the molasses and the regular flour. So I added all the ingredients together, and it says just to put it in a coffee can, and then you put the coffee can in boiling water, and you just let it kind of steam like that until it's cooked. Now I didn't have a coffee can, so what I did is I just used the bowl that I mixed everything in, and I thought that would work. But here's what I did that was wrong. I think that when I mixed everything up, and then I just put it into a pot of boiling water, and I should have greased that bowl, because when I took it out, it was it stuck. It stuck to the bowl. So the bread has a very earthy taste to it, and I actually like it a lot. And like I said, the only thing that I did wrong was I should have greased the pan, because it stuck and it didn't turn out, when you flipped it over, it didn't turn out the way I wanted. But it was good. It was really good. So here's the paper, and these 2 are completely dry, and oh my gosh, I love them. I just love them. They turned out so nice. I just love them. So these are going to go to, I'm going to bundle them up with some really pretty ribbon, and they're going to go to, now these are still damp, those 2, that one's damp, and this one's really thick, so I'm going to have to make some more. But these are going to go to a friend who lives in Florida, and she used to live here in Bluefield across the street, and those are roses that I picked from her garden with her permission, and I saved them. And I knew I would save them for a reason, and now I know why. So she can have a little piece. She moved last summer. Her and her husband moved back to their home in Florida, and now she can have a little bit of her house in Bluefield.